Alright, so unfortunately we have yet another story here, an example of police killing an unarmed black man, and yes, this is even happening as the Derek Chauvin case, the murderer of George Floyd's case, is going on right now, yet again, near where that actually happened, in Minneapolis. We have another example here, so I'm not going to show the video, okay? They did release the body cam video of the footage of the killing, and I'm not going to show that. It's obviously very graphic. You can go look it up if you want to, but I'll give you basically a rundown of the situation, and then we'll talk about some of the responses so far. So essentially what happened was Daunte Wright, who was a 20-year-old young man, was driving his car with his girlfriend. He was pulled over by police for what was basically just a routine traffic violation or a routine traffic stop. The cops went, he tried to give them his information. He was even on the phone with his mom saying that he got pulled over and trying to get access to his insurance information and stuff like that. The police went back, they looked him up, looked his name up in the system, and apparently he had a warrant. What I've heard so far is indicating that that warrant is for something completely unsubstantial, like traffic violations, unpaid tickets, or violations in that sense. And so they go to try to get him out of the car. They tell him to get out of the car. He asks why he's being taken out of the car. And then he tries to flee, and he gets back into his car and tries to start driving away. And one of the police officers, in reaction to that, shoots and kills him. And it gets even worse because apparently this police officer, or at least the story that they are telling, didn't even mean to use her actual gun and was apparently intending to use a taser instead. But here's basically a short rundown of the moment, the flashpoint in question. So Minnesota police on Monday released footage from an officer's body camera showing the fatal police shooting of Daunte Wright. The video shows police attempting to arrest Wright during a traffic stop. As Wright tries to re-enter his vehicle, one officer pulls a weapon and yells, "Taser, taser, taser," before shooting the victim. As Wright's vehicle pulls away, the officer can be heard saying, "Holy shit, I just shot him." And then here's what the police chief had to say. "It is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet." Chief Tim Cannon of the Brooklyn Center Police Department said Monday, "This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright." And Nina Turner pointing out here accurately that the death of Daunte Wright is not accidental, it is systemic. Again, we literally have the ongoing Derek Chauvin case, and not far away, another example of this happened. So it is something that's systemic. This isn't an example of bad cop or bad apple. This is systemic in our policing and criminal justice system here in the United States. The data bears that out. But let's talk about what this actual situation is trying to tell us here. So you're trying to tell me that this officer couldn't tell the difference between their gun and their taser. That brings up a fuck ton of questions. How can you not tell the difference? One, the first question should be, why are you even resorting to using that force on a suspect that is fleeing? You're not supposed to use deadly force on a suspect that is running away. And again, this is over nothing. I mean, this was over a traffic violation. So, of course, our police, you know, their immediate gut reaction is, let me reach for something and knee-jerk shoot a bullet or shoot a taser, what that she suspected was a taser. And in my opinion, I'm not going to back down from saying this, I think that it's obviously better, clearly better, to allow somebody to run away who's not posing an immediate direct threat to the officers. There isn't even an argument to be made that Daunte Wright was posing a threat to these officers. That's not even anything that anyone is saying. He didn't have a weapon on him. He was merely trying to run away. And so, yes, in my opinion, of course it's better to let the person run away. First of all, you already looked him up in the system and knew who he was. You had his plates. You had all of this information about him. It's better to let them run away in the immediate sense than do a knee-jerk reaction and try to just fire whatever you first pull off your utility belt. And I think that's obvious. So the next argument is, and by the way, here's a picture just for perspective on how different the gun and the taser look that they're carrying. They're also carried specifically on different sides of your utility belt so that you don't make mistakes like this, but apparently she did anyways. But here's what the difference is. I mean, it's a yellow versus a black weapon here. In my opinion, this should be obvious, okay? This isn't really a mistake you can make. But even if it is a mistake that you make, as accurately pointed out here by Jamal Bowman, even if it was a mistake, okay, an accidental discharge that kills someone has another name. It's called manslaughter. We don't need police with lethal weapons carrying out routine traffic stops. Reallocate police funding to unarmed traffic forces to remove even the possibility of state-sanctioned manslaughter. So I agree with this sentiment 100%, and this is just a different way of rephrasing the common slogan of defund the police. I support defunding the police and reallocating those resources to more effective programs that we can use in place of a violent state force that results to using weapons as their first reaction, even in something like a traffic violation. But as he points out here, again, an accidental discharge that kills somebody is manslaughter. Saying, whoopsie daisies, I accidentally killed somebody instead of using my taser, that doesn't absolve you from culpability. That doesn't absolve you from the consequences of killing somebody. Okay? Just saying it's an accident is not an excuse, whether or not you want to believe it. And I'll let you guys decide what your personal opinion on is of whether or not she accidentally grabbed her taser over her gun, or grabbed her gun over her taser. But regardless of that, again, this is manslaughter. This is still illegal. It's not complicated. This isn't a valid excuse. But that's the excuse that the police chief was rolling out as an immediate gut reaction. We also had Joe Biden's response to the current situation. Obviously, there were protests that unfolded after this happened, rightfully so. And this is what Joe Biden's response was to the entire situation, including the protests, giving his classic 94 crime bill Joe Biden response here. So let's go ahead and listen.
I haven't called Daunte Wright's family, but our prayers with their family. It's really a tragic thing that happened. But I think we got to wait and see what the investigation shows, and the entire investigation. You all watched, I assume as I did, the film, which is the body cam, which is fairly graphic. The question is, was it an accident? Was it intentional? That remains to be determined by a full-blown investigation. But in the meantime, I want to make it clear again, there is absolutely no justification, none, for looting, no justification for violence. Peaceful protest, understandable.
So, yeah, I mean, what more would you expect from somebody like Joe Biden? I mean, he obviously doesn't make a strong statement on the clip itself or on the situation itself, which again, saying, oh, well, we don't know if it was an accident or intentional yet, that's not an excuse. This was an unjustified murder by the police, okay? You can make a strong affirmative statement based on the evidence that we have right now. But of course, he gives a stronger statement about the reaction to the unjustified murder of another unarmed black person. He gives a stronger statement condemning the protests than the actual murder itself. And I get it. I'm not a proponent of looting. I'm not a proponent of going out and stealing shit or breaking shit just for the sake of it. But you have to also understand the context. And part of that context is the fact that Joe Biden would absolutely never in his life bring up stuff like this. How a young Joe Biden became the architect of the government's asset forfeiture program. So if you don't know what asset forfeiture is, it basically gives police the ability to, let's give an example. Let's say you're pulled over and they see that you have some amount of money in your car. It could be anything. It could be $1,000. It could be $10,000. And you have money in your car. The police can basically say, with no other evidence at all, well, I think that you're going to use that money to buy drugs. So I'm going to take that money from you, and you have essentially no legal recourse to get it back. So this is something that happens all across the country. This is a much bigger problem than actual theft. The evidence shows police essentially are stealing more from civilians than civilians are stealing from other civilians. Okay, so this is the type of looting that Joe Biden would never bring up. The other type of looting that Joe Biden would never bring up is like that recent study that we saw with the Rand Corporation, where they showed that almost $50 trillion has been stolen from the bottom 90% by the top 1% over the last however many decades. These are the types of looting that Joe Biden and people like him would never bring up. But suddenly, when people, some people as a tiny fraction, an offshoot of the justified protests, go and loot a Walmart or go and loot a Target, somehow that's, the big up in arms thing that people are getting angry about, not the actual policy or anything that has led to the conditions that we have today. And so I think it's interesting that that's always a priority. I also think it's interesting that conservatives I mean, the way conservatives frame these issues is it's not justified to damage property in response to a murder, but it is justified to murder in response to property damage. That's essentially the conservative mindset. They will defend somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse for supposedly going and defending property and murdering multiple people, but they won't defend some offshoot happen to be looting or breaking windows protesters in response to an actual unjustified murder. So I just think that's a glaring hypocrisy that comes from conservatives as well as from Democrats, obviously. But don't take your eye off the ball. Here are the real solutions. Obviously, this was a tragic event, and there needs to be full accountability for the officers involved. But in addition to that, it's a systemic issue, and so it requires systemic solutions. And these are the types of things that need to be part of this conversation, need to be part of this narrative. And Jamal Bowman is absolutely right. Reallocate police funding to all of these other programs that will work better than having a one-size-fits-all, all we have is a hammer so everything looks like a nail approach to criminal justice and approach to policing and approach to community justice in these types of ways. So Jamal Bowman is absolutely right here. And yeah, that excuse from the police on the accidental discharge is not going to cut it.